Is it recording? I think it is. I haven't done this in a while. But hey everyone, welcome back. It's been a while since I filmed a podcast, and I'm so excited to come back and tell you all about my Anime Expo thoughts, experiences, and just so much fun stuff that happened. And it's been what is today? It is now August 5th as of today that I'm filming this right now. So it has literally been over a month now since Anime Expo. But we're here, yay. Today's episode is one I've been super stoked and excited to record and talk about today. And that is sort of reflections on Anime Expo. Kind of been able to reflect on the whole cosplay and convention culture community and how that really just kind of helped me as a neurodivergent person, specifically autistic. Who knows if I have any other neurodivergent disabilities too, aside from that. But how going to the Anime Expo really just kind of refreshed me in a way. Going to Anime Expo really made me feel a bit refreshed in a way. It made me sort of recalibrate and remember how exactly this community, the environment, everything was it felt very safe for me, to summarize it. But then we'll dive into all the messy but very real thoughts I had, because there's so much I want to talk about regarding that. So I will do my best to try to condense this into one episode, but we'll see about that. And if you haven't seen the community post board yet, unfortunately I lost the footage for the second part of the latest podcast episode regarding how I financed and budgeted for my Anime Expo experience, unfortunately. However, luckily I summarized most of the main important points in the community tab, so you could go check it out there. Otherwise, for those who have been waiting for that part 2, I am so sorry. Otherwise, go ahead and check out that community post over on the channel's posts tab. Otherwise, let's jump right into our new podcast episode all about my Anime Expo experience and my thoughts and discussion. Here's my disability regarding my convention experience, and honestly thoughts in general about how fandom culture really a very rare but common safe space for neurodivergents and especially autistics out in public. There's probably a better way to summarize this. As you can tell, I have not recorded in a while. Okay, so summarizing from day one. So I went on the first day of Anime Expo, which is, I believe, July 3rd. It was that Thursday. And I was both super stoked because I haven't been able to go to Anime Expo in at least 7 years beforehand. Life just got to me, and then there I was. High school the last time I went, and then I graduated college, and then I focused on transferring to UCLA, and then I was super busy, of course, at my uni life in UCLA time, so I really couldn't have the time to really go to any big conventions or anything in a while, to be honest. I was super happy and excited to be able to go. However, it was also super nerve-wracking for me as well because I hadn't gone in a while, and to be quite honest, I wasn't quite sure if I'd be able to handle going to Anime Expo by myself. And while on that first day I technically carpooled with a family member, they went off and went to do their own thing, and I told them hey, I'd be going off to do my own exploring around all the panels and all that on my own schedule. Because look, listen, I am 23 years old, but not to be ableist or anything, but at the same time I'm and I may be 23 years old, but I still get very anxious and low-key fearful if I go out and about by myself somewhere, especially something as big as Anime Expo. For those who are not familiar with that convention, it is literally the biggest anime convention in North America, I believe. I think, don't quote me on this, but I believe there was a news article that said that the attendance of Anime Expo had just recently actually surpassed that of Comic-Con. So, and I believe it said in attendance it was 100,000 people over the entire weekend, and I was like, yeah, so that means everyone flocks and literally migrates to this convention every year because it is literally known as the sort of, what is that term? Cream of la creme of anime and anime fandoms to congregate together and just nerd out together, indeed. So anyways, that first day I carpooled with someone, however I was off on my own. And it was such a wonderful experience. I had so much anxiety. I remember not wanting to eat anything at all in the car right there. And once I got there, I saw the super long line around it used to be called the Staples Center. I still call it the Staples Center, but it's the crypto arena or whatever now. And I remember just being super scared, and I was wearing my Lilia cosplay outfit as you've seen in the part 1 vlog of Anime Expo. Which, by the way, thank you guys so much for watching that. I cannot believe it went over 200 views, and it was funny because the whole time I was am I over editing me just being silly and nerdy, geeky? But yes, thank you so much. But anyways, going back to the first day, it was just so much fun, and I made a bunch of new convention line friends in line just by, I don't know, dressed up as cosplay, and we're just all mutually out dying in the heat together of LA. It wasn't too bad. I think it took us like maybe 30-40 minutes to get inside the actual convention, but it was really nice, just very soothing, because all you talk about is anime, which is like my main thing, obviously. Like, it is our element. So that was cool. And after that, I just toured around the exhibit hall, and then everything that all the chaos that happens after that. You can watch it in my vlog too. Oh my goodness, there's the photo boost, random call out. People are just randomly just really sweet and nice. They're like, oh, I love your cosplay, or like even if they didn't know the specific game that Lilia was from, they're like, oh my god, like, it's so cool, and then can I still get a picture, stuff like that. And after that first day, it really made me kind of like think to myself and realize, actually no, not even like realize, but kind of remember just how safe and supportive that environment felt for me, especially as a neurodivergent woman, and a neurodivergent in general, as many of us could probably attribute to. It's not often that many of us find these safe spaces or even like events that we could go to that necessarily feel this welcoming or affirming, I suppose, to us being ourselves or unmasking. And it's actually really heartwarming. I say this with like not as much emotion as I actually feel, of course, because that's autism for real, but like it really was just a really kind of awe-inspiring experience for me to experience again as an adult, and like it really helped me remember back to my roots as to like why I really love going to these things a lot, and it was really nice to kind of see that again. But anyways, going back to the main thing, I probably should have defined a bit earlier. What is a special interest for those that aren't too familiar? Alright, let me look up my notes here again. So, real quick for context, when people say special interests, they're usually talking about these super focused, often really intense passions that are common in the neurodivergent community, especially among autistic folks. And they're not just hobbies, they can become part of one's identity, their emotional regulation, even their sense of safety. For many of us, these deep passions help us feel joy in a world that often doesn't make sense to our brains. And that is a small little definition, I guess, explanation of what a special interest often is within the neurodivergent community. And okay, I have to admit, like, I have some of my own tea, my own disability opinion. So technically I don't quite vibe, I suppose, with the term special interest for myself personally. Like, yeah, anime is my safe space, and I've hyperfixated hard in my entire life since like adolescence, even though I was such a tomboy sports nerd. But anime just really like was my actual heart. Does that make sense? But anime was really like the thing for me, truly spoke to me or whatever. And yeah, so I spent most of my teenage years and adolescence just like hyperfixating hard in between sports games and academics or whatever. And I mean, I would binge like maybe 20 episodes and some in between tournaments and stuff, and maybe this pattern kind of went over to my college uni life when I went to UCLA. I don't suggest binging 20 episodes during finals for the quarter system, especially at UCLA, but hey, it helped me get through life and the hardest times of my life, honestly. So, ooh, that's my movie-esque speech. So yeah, so because it held such a deep resonant part of my life, especially as a special interest, I don't know, it doesn't roll off the tongue for me, to be honest. Personally, just my own opinion, of course, it just feels hard. It feels weird because the term itself it feels pathologizing in a way, and there's probably a better way to kind of describe how exact or why exactly, because, okay, my opinion is that neurotypical people often obsess over things that all the time. I call them hobbies. So why can't we? And they're more obviously socially accepted stuff where I'm at, because I live in America. A lot of people will obsess over like maybe football, Marvel, pop artists like, let's say, Taylor Swift, things like that. And I don't disagree with people because I want everyone to be able to identify how they want to and use whatever language that helps describe them best, of course, for their own autonomy and their own self-expression. I get that for other people too, who like to use special interests, because special interests often tend to be more intense or even disruptive sometimes for people, even disruptive for fellow autistics like me, and it often impacts their ability to work or function. It literally just intrudes their occupational life, things they want to get done, things they want to achieve, things like that. And so I don't want to discounting the term entirely. For me, I see my special interests as love in itself. It's a love, a passion, a hobby for me. And that's what makes spaces like Anime Expo super special. But anyways, that's my own little spicy take, I don't know. But anyway, so now let's move on to my thoughts regarding cosplay and how this really helps kind of bridge my neurodivergent identity, and how this really helps root in some safety and self. So let's get on right into talking about cosplays and personas and how this helps create a safe space and environment for neurodivergents like me. And maybe you. I feel like cosplay and fandom culture is a very understudied little area, honestly, regarding our divergent culture. And I know, obviously, we're just starting on getting research funded and all this other stuff that's happening right now, getting that out there. But in particular, when it comes to fandom cultures, there often tends to be a higher... When it comes to fandom culture, especially anime, there tends to be a higher... I don't know if it's higher, but this, of course, my own perception. Higher influx of neurodivergent people and other like minorities, multiply marginalized, if you're disabled, if you're POC. And because of the rapid growth and popularity of anime, it really helped create this niche kind of underground, not really underground, but like it was more of a stigmatized, why did I say it like that? It was more of a stigmatized culture. Anime is more of like a smaller stigmatized-ish kind of culture back in the day, maybe like 20 or so years ago, up until maybe I'd say mid-2010s, but that's when it started getting more people, and especially during COVID, of course, let's talk about that. But I feel like it's really one of those things I really want someone to just make research studies on or something regarding that, because fandoms in general, regardless of anime or not, like they tend to have so much neurodivergence in their communities and all these other safe spaces that we all tend to gravitate to. So I really like enjoy that. But anyways, I'm rambling now. Now, in particular, fandom culture, cosplay is obviously a very popular hobby, practice that all of us engage in order to feel like a character, whether we really liked it, we like their outfits, to embody our faves, you know, the above. So honestly, one of the biggest game changers for me, especially someone who tends to get anxious, yes, and being perceived, even though I did my high school graduation speech and am a 23-year-old woman technically. So especially as someone who gets anxious about being perceived, was cosplay really kind of helped me have a sort of shield, a role, a persona essentially, and it takes up that social anxiety pressure off a bit. For me personally, I'm not sure about many others who are out there who are neurodivergent and also into the cosplay community or hobby. Like, it really helps me just, like, take that pressure off by literally, like, just physically taking on a whole new look and persona. I've seen some, like, indie creators talk about this who are into cosplay and fandom spaces, of course, how putting on this character persona makes them feel less anxious and more in control, and I totally resonate with that. And it's just so interesting being able to experience it firsthand for me. Walking around in these costumes and cosplays, like, you're not worried about people judging you as yourself, your baseline self, how you may be, what you usually look like or present yourself or act or behave. You're channeling someone you love, and on top of that, people around you are hyped about it. And instead of that constant fear that when people look at you or side-eye you that like, oh, they're probably judging you, they may be judging your stims or like how you present yourself and stuff like that, you know, these conventions, fandom spaces, meetups, people will literally be calling out instead, like, oh, you look so cool, or oh my god, you're so cute, and OMG, I love your cosplay, things like that. And you just know they mean it, instead of, you know, the relentless back and forth mental sort of argument that you may have with yourself. Or like, do they actually mean it? Or like, there might be even, instead of like regular environment, like you're out in public or something, where you engage with someone, and me in particular, especially with neurotypical like social practices, like when you talk to people, you may not necessarily realize if they actually mean what they say, and it becomes a whole mental battle just trying to figure out if people actually are meaning what they're talking about and stuff like that, if that makes sense. However, in the cosplay space and convention culture, like, you know these people mean it when they reach out and they like compliment you and everything. It's like, it's these really rare spaces and gatherings that you're able to go to once a year, and it really helps shut down that sort of overthinking where you're like, are people perceiving me the way that I think they are they judging me, etc. But no, like, here at these conventions, people are just outright like, yo, you look so cool, I love your cosplay, your prop is sick, like, yo. But yeah, and these things just don't happen often when it comes to regular day-to-day life. Yeah, these things just don't happen in regular day-to-day life, and it just makes these spaces so special for me, and I'm pretty sure many other neurodivergents alike, and many people in general who just really enjoy anime, cosplay, their fandoms, and it's just, I think personally it's just a really beautiful thing to have. And yeah, oh my goodness, I have a bunch of more topics to get through, but I promise we'll try to keep on track. This is becoming such a long episode, but so this next segment is discussing how when the niche becomes mainstream, and this was a topic I really wanted to kind of discuss about because, listen, I created a whole social media account platform, everything for like, you know, my pillars for both for me, expressing myself, nerding out when I want to, my own little safe space to unmask and everything, whatever. But personally, like, I am low-key kind of a boomer. Like, okay, I touched on this a bit earlier, but once I hit like maybe high school, that last time I really went to like big conventions like Anime Expo, maybe 7 years ago, I got super busy with life. I also didn't really have any socials. It was just me going in and out of like school every day, and then I'd just be at home binging. I think I only did like one of those old like anime app where like you share their own gifs or whatever. Things like that back in the day. Oh my gosh, I sound so old. But yeah. So anyway, so fast forward to now, I didn't make an Instagram till like, I think during COVID or right after COVID, like 2021, 2022-ish. And then I started realizing just how big anime was starting to grow when it came to everyone literally being locked down. Due to everyone literally being in lockdown. And for me personally, I was still studying through my community college prereqs and everything before I had to transfer to UCLA, which by the way, at the time I had no idea I'd be going to that school still. I should make an origin story about that because that was a whole journey in itself. But yeah, so fast forward to now, me starting to actually engage online content and social media, I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. There's so many more people that are now into anime and stuff like that. But on top of that, as many of us see, there's a lot more problematic people as well. And I always remember growing up, I have an older sister who's a bit older than me, and she'd be like, yeah, when I first got into like Naruto back in like the 2000s or something, like it was something you don't necessarily like just wear out in public type of thing. If you're super weeb and cringe, you would get bullied, and now they're grown men out here doing Naruto runs at conventions, and women and everyone from all walks of life be into it, and which is honestly really cool. But basically how nowadays like that has completely changed. There's so many people now that go to conventions and are into anime and fandom spaces and cosplay, and it's amazing. Honestly, I love that. And it's just so interesting because, of course, what we've seen is that the more popular a more niche or subculture tends to be, the greater amount of audience, of course. However, at the same time, sometimes that growth kind of also means there's a greater influx of people who may not entirely, I suppose, be respectful. Like, obviously, what I'm referring to is what I'm referring to is especially like the actual weebs, the disrespectful ones, the ones that go to Japan that also find actual like Japanese waifus and stuff like that. Yeah, that part I'm not a fan of as a Japanese American woman, but and oh my goodness, let's not even talk about how there's over tourism in Japan. Please don't ruin it for me before I have to be able to go on my Japan trip to the motherland, like anyways, yeah, so all in all though, like overall, I'm really happy now because now I get to go to these conventions. When I went to Anime Expo, there's so much like younger families now. I thought that's really cool and cute. There'd be people just cosplaying with their kids and it'd be amazing. Of course, meaning like I see a lot of like younger families too now because a lot of them are millennial parents, and there's a lot of like even older people too, and I think that's just so awesome to see like such a diversity of demographics. Here I'm just like nerding out sociology wise, seeing all these different groups of people, demographics congregating in one area. But anyway, that's my ramble spiel for this segment. So moving on. I wrote too much in my notes, guys. I think my pre-recording's at like 30 minutes now. So moving on. So as I've discussed, there is wonderfully a wider accessibility of conventions, more normalized passions when it comes to the anime community and space, which then thus promotes easier spaces for neurodivergent people to connect with others over shared interests, and even neurotypicals are adopting behaviors that were once coded and stigmatized as weird, quote, back in like maybe 10 or 20 years ago. I can't do math, guys. Many of these fandom behaviors are very neurodivergent adjacent, such as info dumping, fan theories, cosplay, etc. However, of course, there are downsides where like a lot of times neurodivergent experiences may become erased in the mainstream. Neurotypical people may enjoy the aesthetic, but maybe not fully understand the emotional / sensory depth it provides for neurodivergent people like me. But then again, I feel like overall it's pretty good. If anything, I do really think the main area of caution would be like online spaces still, because it's such a horrible kind of like dilemma we have nowadays when it comes to social media. There are so many spaces and threads and discussions out there that can be very, very like dangerous and like rampant for neurodivergent people. I speak that as someone who is neurodivergent and literally got targeted on my school's Reddit. Yeah, so basically, just don't engage with the normies. The most weird thing ever. But anyways, but yes, even in these fandom communities, like, it does provide a safe space, but not to say that all online spaces are necessarily super safe. But for the most part, online fandom spaces and actually, wait, I take that back. The super, super popular fandom spaces that turned toxic. That, nah, I feel like you gotta stay clear for most part. Anyways. But yeah, so I think it's just so amazing that anime is super popular now, but for some of us, not just a phase. It's just important to remember when engaging online with people, especially neurodivergent. It's not just a coping mechanism or a hobby for us. It could also tend to be not just a phase, but it could really just be a coping mechanism for us to get through life, and it really kind of helps us kind of regulate and kind of anchor ourselves in when life gets tough for us and everything like that. And essentially what I hope is that the popularity of anime doesn't erase people who held it close to them, who held it close when it wasn't cool, but instead it helps open up a space for all of us, neurodivergent and neurotypical alike, and to connect with more kindness. And so happy to where we are now than when it was like 10 years ago with anime and even K-pop. Dude, it's so popular now. I'm so happy. Now there are K-pop albums. Now there's anime posters and K-pop merch in our local stores around it. It's pretty cool. 15-year-old me would have been so jealous right now. So take advantage of the space, time, and world we have right now, and honestly go get your anime merch because it is so much more accessible now than it was like 10 years ago. Anyway. But anyways, otherwise, going back from my whole spiritual life segment about convention culture and acceptance for all, basically. What I hope for the future. Now, technically, I haven't posted my Australia vlog from SMASHCon like a year ago. And that convention, I'm going to try my best to upload that as well, because I think it's really important for me to help kind of showcase just what conventions could be like that are more accessible for neurodivergents like us. And so I mentioned this because Anime Expo is super crowded, right? There is very few places that actually very few quiet places to kind of like de-stress and like regulate yourself again after being surrounded by hordes of sweaty people the entire day. And so this is more like a dream out loud thing, like if I could advocate or like just do something, like I swear, like if I weren't super adamant about going to an occupational school, I would honestly really want to do like a master's thesis project or something on like creating like a super accessible convention, especially here in like North America, because like it really is a space I really am passionate about. Like I really want to be accessible and like safe and inclusive for everyone. So one thing I'd really love is to have more quiet spaces, of course, that kind of help people to kind of regulate themselves again. Not necessarily just neurodivergent people. I know at Anime Expo there was a quiet room now, and there was a manga lounge, so they're totally super quiet spaces. However, because there's so many people now, I think they really just oversell their tickets now, like a lot of other conventions, because of the popularity of anime and many other fandom spaces now. There needs to be more. I mean, as always with many different advocacy in disability spaces, there always needs to be more, probably, I don't even know if it's resources by this point. I feel like there needs to be more allocated within what they have, because let's be real, Anime Expo is huge. They literally booked out the Peacock Theater and everything for a lot of their main events this year. I feel like they could honestly allocate a lot of that for bigger spaces for people like us. And in addition, I feel like having a special disability badge would really help. I know it seems very vague on the website. It's more low like, oh, like if you need someone, if you're a wheelchair user and like things like that. But I feel like that, and even like other sort of public big spaces like airports and stuff like that, it's not necessarily specifically neurodivergent or autistic friendly yet, especially here in the US. So I don't know. So essentially need more accessibility to quiet spaces and book lounges. Was, by the way, at Anime Expo, when I went to check it out for fun, it was overbooked. There was a line out the door just waiting to get into the manga lounge and the quiet spaces, and I was like, yikes. But yeah, so not exactly how they follow that whole system. Basically, we need more. And so there's that, and then I feel like there should be a special badge or something, especially for con-goers who are neurodivergent, autistic. And also, like, when I was walking around the convention, there was just so many people, and the elevators too, really wasn't many elevators. Like, I see some, but at the same time, it's the type of thing where, like, you really have to kind of navigate and go around and do all these sort of very inconvenient routes to get to it. So I was just like, ugh. So anyways, that was my disability studies pop-off ramble. For that portion of the podcast I really want to put in there. But otherwise, I will definitely be putting in that Australia vlog, because when I went to SMASHCon in Sydney last year, they literally had a bunch of of safe spaces that were really cool. They had both a light room, a dark room for sensory regulation. It was amazing. And although I know the scale of that convention is a bit smaller than Anime Expo, like it was personally really affirming and also really nice for people like me to see, who is American. We don't really get any accommodations that are publicly backed or even like really, I guess, allowed unless you have money or unless you advocate a lot too, basically. And it was just really fun, and it was just very nice and wholesome. I stayed in that room for maybe like an hour or so before I went out again when I went to SMASHCon, and it was just amazing. So I will be doing my best to upload that as well. And otherwise, yeah, that's my little AX debrief. And hello? Oh. But anyways, that was my little AX debrief. Now 40 minutes long before I pre-cut and edit everything. But thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you for listening to my ramble. I hope some of this actually makes sense for you. Oh my goodness, guys. Like, I wrote a whole outline, but a lot of it I just got super passionate and started just info dump rambling about. But you know what? Hey, I'm back. Did you miss me? But yeah, let me know your favorite comfort anime or your favorite fandom spaces, or if you ever had a hobby that really changed your life too, what helped you get you through your own burnouts or life in general during your lows. And yeah, I'd love to hear about it, and feel free to comment. I'll be leaving those down below, and stay tuned for a few live streams this week. I will do my best to put exact times. We shall see. Otherwise, thanks for sticking around with me today, and thank you so much for waiting a month for that Anime Expo vlog to come out. When again, thank you so much for the 200 views. I was so confused myself because I thought it was the most chaotic. I don't know, maybe I just have internalized stigma still. Being half weeb, half otaku, but but yeah, stay tuned. I will be doing a drawing stream and a Hearts of Wheel Book 1 Part 3 stream later this week. And otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so much, and I hope that you have, my hair's so long, guys. But I'm sending you lots of love, and may your week be pleasant, and hope you get to do something small but fun for yourself, whether it's watch an anime episode, or hug your plushie. Oh, this poor guy was halfway off the screen the whole time, but you know, that's real chaotic small creator vibes. Oh my goodness, I'm so chaotic, guys. But sending lots of love, and may your week be full of soft joy and fun. There you go. Anyways, bye. I just realized, I hope that all of that picked up on my mic, because in this setup today, my mic is over here. So I keep, I don't know, because the camera's here. My mic is over here. Oh well, yeah, I mean, I'll definitely put on the caption setting and I'll try to translate what the heck I'm saying. If not, otherwise, oh well, thank you again. But bye.